McGrail, and I'm a member of the United Church of Christ and Wellington Avenue United Church of Christ. I am carrying this sign at the Occupy Chicago because I had the pleasure and sadness of witnessing in Palestine and Israel this year for 3 months. And I think there is a direct connection between what is happening in our country and where our money is going and where it's not going to the way in which we support other countries, in this case the Israeli occupation in Palestine. And I'm very distressed over the public media who this week on Channel 7 did a report that was attempting to look at issues of anti-Semitism in the Occupy movement, which is a valid thing, but they both overstated the issue and they made accusations that people who support the liberation of Palestinians, especially a Palestinian leader here in Chicago, therefore to criticize the government's policies made them anti-Semitic. So a number of us, after seeing this news, wrote to Channel 7. We received a form letter back saying that the attempt was simply to report on what might be a disturbing trend in the Occupy movement. Made absolutely no mention of the misrepresentation of Hatem, and also failed to really look at what other religious leaders are saying about the Occupy movement, which is why I'm here on a Saturday night, because this is the church. This is where the church needs to be when it's affected. And so I come in my clerical collar because I want the media to see that this is not a monolithic group. We are diverse. And as the other part of my sign says, I believe that we are, and Jesus is 99%, and we all deserve to be considered 100%. And that's not talked a whole lot here, but the vision for wholeness is that we all count, and that there is actually enough if we actually learn to share it.
Well, let's talk a little bit about the Palestinian leader here in Chicago who spoke in front of the Occupy crowd. And
actually, this is what's interesting, the footage, and I only know this because I went to the 10th year anniversary march right in front of this sign, and he spoke there. And he was a passionate speaker, clear about the issues. And that's the footage that was fed into the report of Occupy Chicago. So he wasn't even speaking at Occupy Chicago. So distortion upon distortion here.
So actually, we've been talking about the distortion of Occupy Chicago, but the address that Chuck Goudie actually showed in his report
came from footage from another march which happened about 3 weeks ago. Now, I think he had a question, which is why was the Palestinian flag brought into the mayor's office when they're asking for a permit?
And that was just last week.
That was this week.
Yes.
Was Wednesday. And in my letter, I said, that's a great question. If you're a reporter, a journalist, then go after it. Find out, why is the flag of Palestine being flown at Occupy Chicago and throughout the country? That's interesting. Help us understand the connections.
But he posed that question to you as a defense.
He posed it to the viewers that this is an indication of why the Occupy movement is anti-Semitic.
Oh, I see. That wasn't in his form letter to you.
No. The form letter, he completely left out any mention of anything to do with Palestine. He simply defended his view to report on what he saw as anti-Semitism. He does not acknowledge that he himself and Channel 7 are being intolerant when they paint the picture of a Palestinian man talking about Palestinian issues as being anti-Semitic. He does not go there. And I wonder if he saw me with my sign, would I be considered anti-Semitic or not? Because I'm a reverend, because I'm a white woman. I think there's, for me, and I hope people watching this video, that's the question that needs to be answered.
Well, in Chuck Goudie's, this is the reporter from Channel 7 in Chicago.
Yeah.
In his report, does he actually link support for Palestine directly with anti-Semitism?
He does it through the way he uses the imagery. So he's taking a picture from Hatem at another march, and he's saying that he spoke hateful things about Jews. Now,
so just to be clear again, this was a different march that maybe some people from Occupy Chicago had attended, but it wasn't an Occupy Chicago.
It was the 10th year anniversary of Afghanistan, and what's so interesting and exciting and so sad and tragic that our news media doesn't put the time into connecting what is happening here between movements, between people. So that was a completely different action. But even if it were not, even if he spoke those words right here behind us, he has every right to be here. The Occupy movement has embraced as part of its understanding of what they're about that the liberation of Palestine is not foreign to this movement. So I don't want to harp too much on the fact that it's from a different news clip, a different march. The message was clear that if you're against Israel's policies, you are considered anti-Semitic. That is really problematic for this movement and for any of us who believe in the freedom and liberation of all God's people, and that includes the Palestinians.
Now, as a minister of faith, you actually have a working knowledge of what anti-Semitism would be.
Yes, and ironically, Arabs are Semites. So, that's just an interesting aside. So when you call someone anti-Semitic, you have to really be thoughtful and careful. I think there are, and I have seen, signs against Jewish bankers connecting what's happening to the banks to the Jewish people. I think that probably falls into the category of anti-Semitic, and rightfully so, needs to be called out by us in the movement. But to paint that this is a widespread phenomenon, I think that is done very intentionally to discredit this very intense and important movement that is happening beyond the control of the government, beyond the control of the media, and
Well, have you been coming out to the Occupy events?
I came to another event in the middle of the day, and I got to come at the tail end of the action at the Bank of America when they brought in trash bags of, I think, paper representing the worthlessness of their deeds and the foreclosure. And I got to see at the back door 5 or 6 elderly African American women being hauled off in a van. And I thought, now, if I was in Palestine with my comrades, we might consider sitting down and not letting the van go. But that wasn't where we were at this moment. But when I saw these women getting into the van, I thought, there is something very interesting going on here. The actions are reflective of just how widespread the impact of this falling apart. The empire is falling apart.
Well, the reason that I asked you about your activities here during this march that you were involved in, did you see any anti-Semitic signs or anybody that was posing a Jewish banker motif at the time that you were actually at the bank?
No, I haven't seen any of that. I mean, I saw the images Channel 7 had. Quite frankly, they could have come from another Occupy movement. Maybe they came from here. But given that Channel 7 kind of lied already about the image of Hatam, I wonder now, did they just pull that from the archives? And I'm just really disappointed, and I'm disappointed by the form letter that we all got, and the lack of substance in it from someone who purports to be an investigative reporter. I invited Mr. Goudie to come and interview faith leaders, including Jewish faith leaders who see the Occupy movement beyond what he was reporting, and that this is really a critical moment for all of us. And as I said earlier, that this is where the people are, this is where the church is and should be.
Thank you so very much.